So I am Michael Drew, producing artistic director at Pandora Productions, and I am here with Andrew Newton Schaftlein, who is the star of Buyer and Cellar, and I can't wait for you all to see him in this show. He is quite amazing. So, Andrew, thank you for taking some time out of your busy afternoon, once you've got your babies down for their little nap, for us to have a little time together.
Of course, I'm so glad to be with you.
And I should tell our audience that we are recording this on Tuesday after we recorded our final night and tore down our set and everything. So you're done. It's still kind of in the works for us. We're still marketing and promoting and uploading our video coming this weekend. But so anyway, just to give people context about where you are and where we are in time. So since I mentioned putting your babies down, maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about what it was like to juggle two twin babies and rehearsal and your regular life.
Yeah, well, so I'm a stay-at-home parent. Scott, my sweet hubby, is working for everybody. And so...
It was also our board president.
Who's also the board president.
Just so people know.
And I was, one of the things choosing to stay home was I was feeling a little disappointed. I think anytime you're a new parent, you're like, wow, everything really is going to change. And so the prospect of doing theater was one of those things. I was like, when am I going to have time to do that, at least until they're a little older? But oddly enough, during COVID times, once I heard that all of the Pandora shows were one person and they were going to be rehearsed over Zoom, I suddenly thought, I think I might be able to do that. So I looked at the shows that were going to be done and reached out to you, Michael, and sent you an audition tape for this show, and was so happy to be cast. And rehearsing it ended up being pretty fun because the babies, they're 6 months old now. They were a little over 3 when we started, when I got my script. They've really enjoyed running lines with me. They're a captive audience. They like some of the voices that I did. So it ended up being, it ended up being a pretty seamless process for me.
Yeah, good. So you, something you mentioned I wanted to follow up on. I should have made a note, but I didn't. It's all right. It's a conversation.
Yes.
It's not like I'm Oprah or anything. So, so I noticed right away, as soon as we connected, that the stockings behind you spelled Babs.
They do. Ignore the dog one.
And an homage to our play. For those who haven't seen the play yet, this play theoretically happens in Barbra Streisand's basement, in which she has a mall. Kind of a crazy premise, but, and while the play is not true itself, which the character tells you about at the beginning of the play, the fact that Barbra Streisand has a mall in her basement is quite true.
Yeah.
And I find that funny, and yet I also find it really endearing and charming about Barbra. I confess I am a huge Barbra Streisand fan and have all of my life. I earned my gay stripes real young when I fell in love with her. Tell me what your relationship to Barbra is and was before this process and now after the process.
So in the play, my character makes a confession and he says, I've never been that big of a Barbra queen, not into Judy either, although I'd appreciate it when I would be sat down for tutorials. But I appreciated these things as part of my gay birthright, my heritage, which for me, as Andrew, summed it up perfectly. I was like, I know I'm supposed to like Barbra. And like, I like Funny Girl and I knew some of her stuff, but I hadn't really taken a deep dive. So when I found out I was cast in the show, I went on Facebook and I was like, okay, everybody send me the list of all of your essential Barbra stuff, movies, albums, television specials. And people did, and it was so fun to work my way through her career, starting with the early stuff, moving into like the really awful stuff, like God, I forget the name of it, but the road,
Careful.
the
Careful.
the movie she did with Seth Rogen.
Oh yeah, that road movie that we
That's
talk
one
about in the play.
we do. That's one we could pass over. But anyway, it was to see the whole scope of it all was really fun. And so now I feel like I've got another on my like little gay history report card. I got a little tick next to Barbara. There's more to learn. I'm on my way.
You got a little punch in your card.
I did. I did.
So the last time it's been a while since we've talked about some of the things that I recommended for you to take a look at for Barbara. And I don't think we followed up on any of those. I know you watched Funny Girl, Funny Lady. Did you see Funny Lady? Hello, Dolly.
Hello, Dolly. The Way We Were. The Mirror
The Way
Has
We Were.
Two Faces. Which the Mirror Has Two Faces is referenced heavily in a chunk of the show. So if you want to get ready to watch the play, The Mirror Has Two Faces would be a good one.
Would be a good one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On a Clear Day. Did you see that yet?
I didn't see On a Clear Day, no.
You still have to see that.
I know. The other fun thing, I also ended up taking detours because of like a lot of the great plays, the gay content Pandora does. There's so many references.
Yes.
So like I watched Mildred Pierce for the first time, which was life-changing. I love
right.
Oh my God, it was so good. There were a couple other, like I know who Shirley Booth is now in the show Hazel. Just lots of really
Did you see any clips of that?
Yes.
She's so cute.
Adorable.
I love her.
So yeah, and like just as sidebar, that's one of my favorite things about Pandora is it is a way to connect to our gay heritage that a lot of younger folks, they just have a different gay pop culture moment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there while Barbara was in my generation, that's who Barbara and Judy, of course. You know, Cyndi Lauper and Madonna are the superstars that younger folks follow, probably your age. And then I have no idea who they're following now because I'm way beyond. You probably have some idea, but I don't.
Listen, I don't know what the 20-year-olds are doing. I know they'll. I'm not going to put my feet in hot water.
Not even going to guess.
I'm not going to.
Yeah. So in this play, you are the only actor. That's all we're doing this season is one-person shows. And our last show, Open, was about a 60-minute show. This show is about an hour 40, ultimately. That seems like a whole lot more lines than even the last play. And while in the last show, we did, the character did kind of back and forth between two characters. She did that frequently, but not as much as you do in this play. So I'm interested to know how it was creating all of the characters that we see in this play. So we see your character, Alex. We talk to Barbara Streisand. Alex and Barbara talk. Alex has a boyfriend named Barry. He and Alex talk. There's a character named Vincent. There's a character named Sharon. And Alex has conversations with all of those people. And we see that conversation happening on stage. So I'm interested to know, and I think our audience would be interested to know, what it was like to create those characters, make them distinct. Let's start there. And then I've got a follow-up question about that too.
Yeah, so what was interesting for me was I had an idea after getting more familiar with the script of who I thought they were. And so if I were working on just a singular character for a show, there's a lot of, I don't know, it was easier. It would be easier for me to find more nuance in the voicing and the choices. And what we were finding as we were going through is some of my voices were not distinct enough. So like, for instance, there are scenes with my character Alex and his boyfriend Barry, who are both gay men, and for a while they were in a similar place vocally, and so through a couple different rehearsals, I made some pretty drastic changes to Barry, um, which coincidentally took his character to some different locations and helped me find some different choices with him, solely based on finding the voice that I did. So it was, I think the thing that I struggled with the most in the beginning was going far enough with the characterizations that so that they were all distinct.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest challenge, and my recollection is that was the biggest challenge for you.
Mm-hmm.
So then on stage, you're in those conversations, and some of them are pretty quickly paced. So what did you do as an actor to keep them distinct, and make sure that the shifts were distinct and different from each other, and you didn't lapse one character into the other? Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, it totally does. So because my primary character is this Alex, a lot of the work you do as an actor going into a show is you kind of break down each scene with, what are the goals that your character has, where's the conflict in the scene, who's the winner and the loser of the conflict. And I was finding myself getting lost in this dialogue because while I was voicing other characters, I remained as Alex kind of mentally. But then it dawned on me. I was like, oh, I should play the scene from Barbara's point of view. And so then understanding deeper Barbara's intention and not just Alex's recollection of what Barbara said helped me understand where Barbara was heading, which made those shifts between a little easier. And it may seem obvious to do that exercise, but to me, we were well into the process. And when it finally happened, I was like, oh, of course.
It's revelatory.
Yes. Yeah.
Revelatory. That's the word I'm looking for. Revelatory. Yeah. So, as I've said, the play is about 1 hour and 40 minutes, and we did take a break in the recording of it so that you could have a bit of a break. The audience will see it in one fell swoop unless they pause. Mm-hmm. But that's 45 pages of monologue. So talk to me about your process of learning. I have to say I'm in awe of how quickly you learned, and really jealous of your young brain, because it doesn't work that fast for me anymore. I would have to work a lot harder and a lot longer for that. I'll get my chance later this season, but it's a little terrifying. Did you find it scary, and what was your process?
I found it terrifying. There was absolutely a point, like a third of the way through the process, I was like, what did you sign up for? I was like, and people who know me from around town know that I do more musical theater than anything else. And so I've never, ever done something this heavy on dialogue. And so what I do know about my learning process, and I told you this early on, was as soon as I can have blocking and we know what the set is, my brain can map movement to lines. And so as soon as I knew that it's a very simple set, there's just a little chaise and a stool, and even with just those two things, once I had the blocking and felt the rhythm, something about just doing that was helpful. And we've in our office out back, I set it up like a stage. So when I would go over lines, even when there's like, sometimes you're just running lines and sometimes you actually are wanting to like act and get it on its feet. Even when I was just doing lines, I was doing it with the movement, and that seemed to really help solidify it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's challenging. I mean, you said at the beginning, oh, I learned lines really quickly. And I thought, this is 45 pages. of lines.
Yeah.
And I do think it was probably harder than you thought it was going to be. Yes.
100%. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You also mentioned the word blocking for our audience who don't know what that means. I think you sort of explained it, but it's like choreography. It's the patterns and the movements that an actor follows during the script. So in thinking about the process of this play, you know, I went through it with you, but you can go into some detail for our audience. Was it the same as processes that you've gone through before, or different? And in what way was it different?
It was different. It was because it's a one-person show and because COVID.
Yes. We're playing safe. We're rehearsing on Zoom until we just
Yes.
can't rehearse on Zoom anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very different.
We had a lot of table work. And for our audience don't know what table work is, it's when you just really sit down with a script at a table, usually in person, across from each other, and just talk through the play line by line by line and talk about the motivations of the character, in this case, characters, you know, why the playwright constructed a particular scene the way he did, where it builds and where it ebbs, all that stuff. So all that happens in table work. And sometimes you're lucky enough to get a couple of rehearsals of table work, but we had 3 weeks of table work. So,
and it was great because I feel like I'd get my little through the table work, I'd get my little homework lists together of media to look up, to consume, because there are really a lot of references in this. And then I'd get to come back the next day or over the weekend and be like, Michael, you won't believe what I watched. And we would share clips back and forth and sometimes watch things together in person. So yeah, having all that time for the table work was really good. And especially when you're in a very large show, like it doesn't even have to be that large. If you've got like 6 or more people, the amount of time you can really spend on individual characters is just limited because it is
so limited. Yeah.
So this was really fun to do, like a really in-depth look. And I also, and you briefly mentioned this, kind of dissecting the structure of the play, which is something that we really don't often get a chance to do. Right. So like there are scenes where you're like, I wonder why he wrote that there. And then you can really be like, oh, well, if that wasn't there, then we wouldn't believe this relationship later when this happens. And so it was fun to do all that too.
Yeah, and usually a director doesn't take the time to dissect the play with the actors because, you know, things will come out in the rehearsal process. You know, you'll say, oh, that's happening because of this. The director has done all that usually, dissected it and knows what all those beats are and all that stuff, but you rarely talk about it in the rehearsal process. You don't always get the opportunity to talk about it. I say never. We sometimes get the opportunity to do that, but not always. So yeah, that's fun. And I will say that for me as a director, that's been the fun part of these 2 shows that we've done so far. Yeah. And I know it'll be the fun part of the rest of the season too. Any other thoughts about the play itself? And I don't think I even said the title. It's Fire in Cellar by Jonathan Tolins. I might have said that at the beginning. People might have had a clue. Anything that happened for you during the course of the play? I'm always interested to know if an actor has grown personally through a process, and if they have, great. If they haven't, that's fine too. I'm just curious if you learned anything about yourself in the process, and if you have any other thoughts about the play itself.
Yeah. What I'd say about the play is I think it's not a heavy play. I mean,
not at all.
Guess that from the premise, a guy working in the mall in Barbara's basement. So sorry.
It's all right.
Weird. So it's great in this moment because there's so much heaviness and like our tech week, so like the week where you really start to put in the sound and the lights and the costumes and the technology, was during election week.
It's
So having this little ray of sunshine to try and make happen this adorable fun play, combined with the stress of all of that, kind of kept me completely occupied from absorbing too much news, which I thought was healthy. So I just have appreciated that this play is just a moment of levity. And I hope everyone who sees it will feel that too. And then what have I learned in the process? I really have, again, like, I didn't know that much about Barbara, really. Um, and it's twofold. So consuming all the media that is referenced in the show and the Barbara media that people love, combined with the playwright's really deep understanding of Barbara, was
deep.
illuminating. Yes, because there would be all these little references that you thought, oh, you know, because it's a work of fiction, you're like, oh, they just came out of his head. But Michael and I, through the process, kept discovering.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Siri keeps talking to me.
Siri, shut up.
But through the process, we would find little things like, for instance, a production of Gypsy with Barbara playing Rose is referenced in the show. And I thought it was just kind of a fun thing. And then you get to talk about Gypsy for a few pages, which who doesn't want to talk about Gypsy for a few pages? But then if we've found out, Michael found a link that she actually was trying to make that happen and might still be trying to make that happen. And there's this, we end up finding this amazing video where Patti LuPone is just trashing Barbara. So, yeah, finding the bits of fact and truth about Barbara in this fictional piece was really illuminating.
There are a lot of nuggets of truth. Yeah, it was really astounding to me too. And I think he found and got a lot of those in the book that we talk about in the show. It's Barbara's book, My Passion for Design, about her the house and barn and basement and mill that she's created in Malibu. It's really quite a stunning estate. And yeah, you'll get to see some of the pictures in the play. We project a lot of the images behind Andrew while he's acting. And we play transitional stuff that is some of Barbara's music. So, you know, you get to hear her as well as hear about her and hear her voice through Andrew. So I do have one more question, because you talked about the tech, and now that we're talking about those technical elements, the projections and the sound were tedious to sort of make happen, at least from my point of view. How did they affect your performance and the teching of the show? And when I say teching, for our audience, it just means putting in all the technical elements with the actor. Because I've had Andrew for 2 months, but then the technical elements we put in within a matter of a few days. And I'm going to talk to Jesse about lighting later in an interview, so people will get a chance to hear about those things. But how was that as an actor to sort of deal with all that technical stuff coming at you?
It always feels, when you're adding in the technical stuff, as from the actor's perspective, you've been trying to remember your lines, you're hopefully acting, you're really you're trying to get it all together, and then all this new stuff is thrown at you. And I always, in that moment, appreciate that productions, it's very easy to feel like it's all about the actor, like I've got to tell this story, but then you see all this other magic and work and sweat and blood and tears that are poured into this, which at first can be a little jarring, because you know, you may have been imagining some sound effects for a while, but then suddenly they're there. It really does a wonder to help the story feel more real to you as you're acting through it. And I think the images, especially in this this production, there is so much description of what's being seen because it's so lavish and beautiful and out of this world that the images really help bring that to life. And I should mention too, I think if you are a Barbara fan and you know who you are, the book that this is centered around, My Passion for Design, written and photographed by Barbara Streisand, is really stunning.
It's stunning.
And she must have printed a ton of them, and they're sitting in a warehouse because it's only like $13 or $14, and the book is so thick with so many.
I have my copy right here. I'll show you.
Ooh. So I would really recommend, if you're at all a fan, it's a beautiful coffee table book.
It's gorgeous. The pictures are stunning. Let's see if I can open up to one.
And it sounds like she wrote a lot of the text. So it's very much feels like Barbara.
Sounds just like her. Yeah.
Sounds exactly like her.
Sounds exactly like her.
So you may get a kick out of that if you're a big Babs fan.
And who isn't?
And who isn't? I certainly am now. Look at my stocking.
Now you are. Babs, right there she is. Andrew, thank you so much for spending some time with me today and sharing with our audience some thoughts on the show. I think they'll enjoy hearing about the process and how you came to be in it. And just because he's the board president's husband doesn't mean he gets cast. He did have to audition. I made him send me a tape, and then I can give him a little more dirt on that. He sent me a tape, and I was like, yeah, it was good, but what if you tried this? Yeah, I put him through his paces.
You put me through. I actually, when Scott started getting involved with Pandora board stuff, I was like, you better not screw me on getting cast. If they don't cast me because of nepotism or whatever, I was like, you. Anyway, but it's been great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.